Alright, so we are back with another unpopular opinion video, and today it's going to be on Deathstroke. Before we get into some of your opinions, there seems to be one topic in which a lot of opinions are either on one side or the other, and this is the topic of who is Deathstroke truly a villain to? Teen Titans, Batman, somebody else? There's a lot of discourse on this. And some of you are on the side of Titans only, or Batman only, or Titans and Batman, or a little bit of everything. I personally don't know why over the past couple of years this discussion seems to be more rampant than I believe it really should be. I've always viewed Deathstroke as an everybody villain. He is a mercenary, and whereas sometimes he might be a little more keen to toying around with the Titans, I still think Deathstroke is capable of being a villain to absolutely anybody. I mean, in this new Superman show, apparently he's the main villain to Superman, in which I don't hear many people complaining about. But it's the minute you bring up Batman, that's when apparently it becomes a problem. I don't know, doesn't make too much sense to me, but let's see what some of you have to say. So the first comment we are going to start with is Jake Braz, who says, "This idea of Deathstroke as a Green Arrow or Batman villain is ludicrous. He is a Nightwing Titans villain and always will be. DC needs to address this issue, and the best way to do it is in a DCU Nightwing Titans project or Brave and the Bold." So number one, I will say the problem with that is if you feature him in Brave and the Bold, and even if you try to make it seem like he is a Robin or Nightwing villain, you are now still connecting him to Batman through a Batman movie, so that's probably not the route you would want to take. But B, I still just don't see the issue here. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I would probably say, you know what? If I have to narrow it down, Deathstroke is a villain towards Nightwing or the Teen Titans. But that's the thing about Deathstroke. I don't think you can be narrow with that character because the character himself is not narrow. He is a mercenary for a reason. He takes contracts for money and does what he's got to do. I feel like when you make a mercenary character, you might have the general one or two characters that they find themselves going up against a lot, but I don't believe Deathstroke is a character who should be locked down by one person, and that's it. Z Production says Liam Neeson should have played Deathstroke instead of Ducard. Very much a missed opportunity. He could have lost his son and avenges him by giving the world fear, the theme of the movie. Could have been cool to see, but I digress. That's actually a very interesting idea. And when Christopher Nolan made those Batman movies, of course, he was taking things from comic books and loosely adapting it to the screen, but he was doing things that were very different, and he was making his own decisions for his version of Batman. It would have been neat if maybe Slade Wilson in that universe was part of the League of Shadows. I don't think it would be insane to think or draw up a universe, a DC Elseworld story, where Slade Wilson is part of the League, or maybe even is Ra's al Ghul himself. Also, too, Liam Neeson, especially at that age, could have been well suited for a Slade Wilson. I am absolutely a-okay with him being Ra's al Ghul, but if that were to end up being the way it played out, him as Deathstroke, I think it would have been very interesting for that version of Batman and the characterization of Deathstroke in all media moving forward. Colin R says he is to Dick Grayson what Joker is to Batman. And I think that is an absolutely fair statement, and one I do agree with. Joker and Batman do have emotional stakes to their rivalry. Yes, it might be a very demented emotional attachment to one another, but still emotion nonetheless. With Deathstroke and Nightwing, it is a very antagonistic relationship. This is putting it very simply, but I've always felt as if Deathstroke is just the nagging type towards Nightwing, or the mockery type. It is the "you're not that good, you're not that special, you'll never amount to anything." And eventually that just sends Nightwing over the edge to the point where he will do something. And that's why there is an attachment to their rivalry, because Deathstroke always tries to seem like he is better than Nightwing, and Nightwing is always trying to prove that he simply isn't. Mark 3 Pan says, Deathstroke is the only equal human to Batman and most entertaining opponent for a 1v1. This right here, I could not agree more. Everything about being the perfect human. Agility, durability, strength, speed, maybe not so much IQ, but when it comes to being a perfect human in skills of the human body, they are perfectly matched. Yeah, maybe there isn't too much of an emotional attachment between the two characters, but I don't think you always need that, especially if the purpose is to have a 1v1 fight, if it is to show off the skills, if you want to play out a scene or comic book panels of two of the most skilled people in the DC universe duking it out. It's awesome. It's super entertaining. I love it. And let's be honest here, given a skilled enough writer with a good enough story, you could make a Batman and a Deathstroke 1v1 feel emotional. You could put some emotional baggage behind it. Temple says, he is what Cad Bane is for Star Wars, but for DC. He isn't just a Nightwing, Green Arrow, Batman villain. He's a hired assassin who doesn't take his work personally. It's just his job. At least that's what he told Batman once. He can be a good guy if he feels like it. Injustice isn't canon, but it's a great example in my opinion. So basically, he could be a villain for anyone in DC. Same goes for other DC villains, such as example, Darkseid or Deadshot. I feel like I don't even really need to go into any of my explanation with this comment. What I said earlier is exactly what you are saying here. One of the things I will dive into really quickly here is your example of Darkseid and Deadshot. They can be used as villains for everyone, and I think the only difference with Darkseid is, yes, he can be used as a villain for Superman, or he can be used as a Justice League villain, or simply put, an everyone villain, more so on the universal scale size or world domination size, whereas Deadshot or Deathstroke can be used by so many other characters and can even be used as a team-up villain, a character who starts to outsmart some of the hero characters and starts to take them down one by one. Charlie Masano says, I understand how he is a Teen Titans villain, but to me it seems like a waste. He is always fighting kids, although very powerful. It would make more sense to fight the likes of Nightwing. I also think he should be able to threaten the likes of the Justice League, similar to Ra's or Vandal Savage. Deathstroke is supposed to be absurdly powerful, and he shouldn't be mixed in with the Teen Titans much if at all. So I'm okay with Deathstroke being a villain of the Titans. As you said yourself, they are very powerful. Although they may be kids, they're still very strong. I do think that maybe instead of fighting the Teen Titans, you could actually go the Titans route, the show we most recently had, where they're not necessarily teens, they're maybe now young adults. So they're a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit stronger. Even though they are still young, they still have things to learn about working as a team and just who they are themselves. But yes, Deathstroke should be on a level of a Batman. He can literally tear down a Justice League one by one, almost in the same way that Batman has contingency plans for the Justice League. Whether Deathstroke is smart enough to figure out his own contingencies, or if he somehow finds a way to steal the ideas of Batman, he should be able to do that same thing. He's skilled enough, and whereas he might not have a 500 IQ, I think he would still be smart enough to know what he would have to do to take down a Justice League. I always think back to Deathstroke from that DC Universe Online trailer, where he literally takes Wonder Woman one-on-one. Yes, I understand by the end of that battle, Cersei ends up coming in and taking on Wonder Woman herself. Deathstroke was still fast enough and honestly stealthy enough to strip Wonder Woman of her lasso of truth. I feel like captured properly, Deathstroke could do that in some sort of movie, show, animation project. Cecagna says this has been beaten to death already, but needs to be restated. Deathstroke is a Teen Titans villain. Batman doesn't have a rogues gallery, he has a rogues museum. Let us Titans fans have this one, please. Second, mercenaries and assassins are irredeemably evil characters. Any attempt to make Slade a hero or anti-hero does not and cannot work. At best, he can be an anti-villain, but even that doesn't work because Slade does not have a heart of gold. So starting with your first part of the comment, you are absolutely right in the fact that Batman's villains are so damn good. It is not a gallery, it is a museum. And it's a world-renowned museum. All tourists around the world would have to go to this museum just to see the spectacle that they offer. Batman's villains are nearly all spectacular in every way. And once again, whereas I would narrow down Deathstroke being mostly related to Nightwing or the Titans, I still gotta hold my ground on this. I still think at the end of the day, he will go after anyone he has to. Yes, whereas his emotional attachment may be more so Nightwing and Titans, he will still fight anybody. And it'll be a fun matchup because of how skilled he is. As for your comments about him just straight up being a villain, I 100% understand what you say. Although there are times where his anti-hero presence does work. Slade is a very smart man. Given certain situations, he may know when he just simply can't be a jackass. He can't be a straight up villain. He has to, even if it's unwillingly, work with certain people to get a particular job done or save the world. Deathstroke as some sort of anti-hero or a character who is working alongside the heroes works well in the Injustice games, that whole storyline, and the Nightmare world that Zack Snyder presented us. Time for my unpopular opinion, and this would more so be a story that I would want to tell, keeping in mind with the idea that Slade Wilson enlisted in the army in the 60s. He went through an experimental process to gain some of his powers. What I would actually do is, continuing off of that, maybe because of how experimental the process actually is, he had to go off the grid, and the government had to list him as missing in action. Now that he's part of this experimental program, willing or unwilling, Slade now needs to forget completely about his past life, which now means he leaves his wife and newborn baby behind forever. And who is that newborn child? It is John Grayson, Dick Grayson's father. Essentially, what I would do as years go by, Slade becomes the best high-priced assassin in the DC universe. He learns that his son died in a circus accident and his grandson was adopted by Bruce Wayne, in which Bruce Wayne turned him into a boy wonder, where he eventually becomes Nightwing. And basically everything that Batman taught Dick Grayson is kind of against what Slade's process of thinking actually is. So now he hates the man that his grandson is becoming, and he decides to hunt him down, not to kill him, but to teach him lessons into maybe turning him more into the man Slade himself is. And eventually, of course, you would get a revelation of, hey, I'm your grandfather. Now, of course, you could do many things with the nameplay. Slade Wilson, Slade Grayson, he had to change his name to Wilson. Maybe John Grayson found out things about his father through back channels, didn't want to be connected to that, so he changed his name from John Wilson to John Grayson. That stuff's playable. You can work around that. I guess at the end of the day, my bold opinion would really be, I think Deathstroke should be the grandfather of Dick Grayson. Now that their relationship is already kind of emotional when they fight each other, it now becomes extremely emotional because there is a family connection. So there you go. That is my bold opinion, and there are some of your bold opinions on the character of Deathstroke. So guys, let me know in the comments below what you thought of my bold opinion and what you thought of some of the other people's bold opinions. If you didn't get the chance to comment on the community post, now is your chance to let me know your unpopular opinion opinions on this video right now. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and keep an eye on my community posts as the next character will be posted very soon. But that is all I have for you on this one, everyone. So until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.